It's changed a lot since then. It used to be a program that simply leveraged UAE defense procurements into investments into the UAE. And that original role was very useful. This took us, I think, quite comfortably through till probably the 97, 98 timeframe, where it became clear that what you needed to do to be competitive as a country, and based upon various work that we had done, was to develop certain strategic clusters of industries and companies that would feed on each other. And the feeding on each other made the sum much more valuable than the sum of the parts. That, I think, characterized very much the change that we're seeing now. In developing these clusters and seeing how these clusters fit together, we had to take an overall bird's eye view of what the economy needed. One of the most important elements of that, of course, is energy. Energy is very important for us. We're an energy producer. And we looked at the possibility of simply going to Qatar, our next door neighbor, and buying some gas. That simple, very logical decision, which we needed to do to support the offsets-driven industrial cluster and to support various other strategic projects that we were doing and things of that sort, led us into gas importation into the UAE. It's such a large program, by all accounts the largest single energy development ever anywhere, that it is often misunderstood. And I think if we can define it, then it becomes a lot easier to see where opportunities can present themselves for people who are interested, and also how we will be operating and managing this process. First of all, it's a strategy, it's not a company, it's not a project. It is a strategy that links gas upstream in places like Qatar, Abu Dhabi, Dubai, Oman, Pakistan and India, all upstream, to markets in Qatar, Abu Dhabi, Dubai, Oman, Pakistan and India, to the creation of new markets by making markets. Dolphin will be investing in areas that will create markets. There's a different environment than the one that we're used to, where people produce for an existing buyer, either sell spot or long term. But we're actually making markets. This is a program that's much larger than the UAE. It's a program that's much larger than the Gulf. It's a program that's much larger than South Asia. It's a program that integrates one of the largest human markets to one of the largest hydrocarbon reserves in an area that can lead to mutual, not only dependence, but growth. And where all the different elements are actually available in all the different places, and where the strategies traditionally have been very concentric on the national capabilities. We will have strategic partners. We will have tactical partners. We will not go into a single power station without having partners that know what they're doing in that particular technology, in that particular kind of power station, in that particular location, that have markets that they can sell their electricity to. We will not be going into any single petrochemical area in anywhere in the world without having the same kind of partnerships, joint ventures and so on. Within the UAE, we've already set up a holding company just for petrochemicals, Sana'at, that will be looking at having a whole host of joint venture partners through other different areas. In the upstream, in the different countries, again, we'll have upstream partners. In Qatar alone, we're likely to have several different separate developments. It has been announced that we have agreed with the Qataris for our own upstream development in Qatar. That's the UAE Offsets Group upstream development. Of course, we're not going to pump gas on our own. We don't know how to do that. We know how to deliver gas from a value point of view to a market which we are creating. And we know how to deliver that value over territory that we understand very well, that no one else has access to. We know how to invest in markets that can that can absorb us, that can welcome us, and how we can carry other partners alongside ourselves into those markets. But we're certainly not going to be the operators. We'll be interested partners, and we will have operators in our concession. But we'll also be investing into other people's concessions in Qatar and in the various other upstream pieces along the way, and so on and so forth throughout the value chain. One of the beauties of Dolphin is it is a very, very robust economic model. If you look at any one of the pieces, taking gas out for our industrial investment program in Qatar alone, it's worth our while. If you look at the piece of buying gas from our concessions or partner concessions in Qatar for the UAE industrial development program, it's worth our while. Each of these will be businesses in their own right, very sizable, many hundreds of millions of dollars, many of them, of businesses in their own right, with partners that are making that investment specifically for that investment, even though they may not be involved in the other parts of the value chain. Of course, as you move up that value chain, you're able to play different strategies together and perhaps look for increased profitability because of the synergies that are involved. We, of course, are sitting quite pretty because we're sitting at the top. This is not an all or nothing deal. It is a deal that is built up of many, many, many profitable, self-sustaining building blocks. Each in their own right would be quite a substantial program for anyone. The only problem that we have is managing the demand that this program has created. The interest that this program has created is not just because there's a new concession, which is huge for anyone. It's not just because there is a new route to put a pipe bringing gas from one place to another where a market exists. It's not just because we have dozens of petrochemical programs in 5 different countries being put together, which is enough to make most banks salivate. It's also because it is tied into an overall strategy, an overall vision that has the ability for those companies that are able to be high up in that value chain. It gives them the possibility of playing a role that bridges political boundaries. It gives them the role to position themselves globally in a competitive environment. If you look at it from an oil major's point of view, it allows him to be able to distribute his risk going downstream within a strategy that they have a tremendous amount of influence over, and protecting themselves from simply being commodity producers and commodity traders. And if you look at it from an energy company's point of view, for example, it gives them the ability, again, to go globally and diversify into sources of energies and hydrocarbons. And that mix is a very interesting mix, a very interesting competition, and one that we need to manage from the point of view of all the relationships that are being forced upon us.
And where is
very nice relationships being presented to us. One of the difficulties in gas grids in the Gulf has been the issue of how can I supply you gas to proposed industries, and how can I risk my hydrocarbons for proposed industries, and the other side saying, how can you not guarantee me gas? How could I invest in an industry without the guarantee of gas? We had a chicken and egg situation. But with regard to gas grids in the Gulf, again, we were in a very fortunate situation, which perhaps we were involved in engineering. But because of the demand for power in the UAE and the privatization of power in the UAE, we had international investors coming into the power sector and desalinization sector with a need for guaranteed gas and with a need to enter into binding agreements for the supply of that gas. That gives you a core market. You have to also remember that the value of our gas within Abu Dhabi is very well monetized. We export gas through LNG, and we use gas for re-injection to produce something of very clear value, oil. This allows us to look at a market that is actual compared to planned and give you an anchor client in the point of view of being able to build your pipelines and negotiate your gas supply agreements from a variety of different concessions in terms that were not possible before by anyone else, simply because they did not have access to these different quirks. And so we are in a very lucky situation, and that situation allows us to raise the financing, bring in the partners, put in the infrastructure, and marry supply and markets without people taking bets. But having that ability allows you to be in a very sound position to start taking bets based upon your market making, which are your own investments in areas that would need that gas. And we're indeed doing that not only in Qatar and the UAE, but well beyond.